That's why. So yeah, I mean, it's super complicated. Work your friendships now so that you have permission to say to each other, he's not the one. I think that is the hardest thing to do. And I've seen this go really well, and I've seen this go really poorly. Like, have a friend that you say to now, like, if I'm dating a guy and you think he's bad news, tell me. And I will yell at you, and I will disagree, and I will stomp off in a huff, and I won't call you or return your emails. Do it anyway. Because when you do that for a friend, it plants a seed for her to work with, and she might, we never want to have that conversation, but I think it's worth it. And on the flip side, if you're dating, if your friend's dating somebody you think he's fabulous, say, no, I think he's fabulous, smarten up, pay attention, don't, so what if he hasn't read the complete works of Shakespeare? That's probably not going to matter in planning a life. Like, let's try and sort out what actually matters.
Is God, how much of it is us? I don't know if that's too complicated an answer for me to give, because I'm kind of hearing both messages a little bit, so.
You're very perceptive, because that's totally what it is. So the question is, when you're trying to date and involve God in it, how much of it is faith, how much of it is action? Yeah. Here's the answer I found after years of research. We don't always know. That's part of the mystery. I have friends, for me, dialing down my action component because I'm such an initiator was a big part of what God did with me. He basically said, like, raise your expectations, but you don't do the work. And I feel, for me, that was part of why he shut down my dating life in a while. In hindsight, I didn't see it at the time. I felt like he needed to just shut me down and work with me before I could, it was almost like an internal makeover. I have other friends, my friend that I was praying with for a husband, she got to go shopping for purses and get manicures and pedicures. And she actually was told, no, she would turn down dates because she didn't feel like, angels singing when a guy asked her out. And so I think her path to wifely readiness was completely different and more what I would have preferred. And God sees us as really individual. And that's why I wanted to start with this tonight, getting in touch with who we are and even just asking the opening question, God, is there anything you'd like to bring to my attention? Because I can give you my experience, and that might clue off something like, oh, maybe I'll think about that. But God has something personalized for each of us if we open up the conversation. And I know that's not totally helpful. And let me just flag, dating within the Christian world feels like a minefield like no other because people have opinions. And they're strong opinions. A lot of them really angered and upset me. And so I want to say, if you have a visceral response to anything you're reading about what you have to do as a person dating, pay attention to it, ask God about it, and in my experience, one or two things will happen. You'll either realize, no, that's someone's opinion, or you'll realize, oh, that's completely right. But God will do something in you that won't feel like bad news anymore. It will feel like freedom and good news in a way that you can't make sense of. You'll be like, I don't know why I'm excited about this, but suddenly I am. And that's a sign God's working. But wrestle with it. Don't just accept things and sort of be angsty and feel like, oh, you're not doing it right because you can't understand what it is. God will explain it. He's super about explaining himself if we give him the space and ask the question.
Yeah. And just one thing to add, because it's something that I've been studying is, I'm one of those people that, since I was 5, all I wanted to do was, meet my husband. And as a result, I've been completely, trashed by dating, and just bad situations, because I was just, all I could think about was that desire. And, I was really focusing on that scripture, delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. And there's a catch to that. It says delight yourself in him and then you'll get your desires. Don't obsess in your desires. So even in reading that or in pursuing anything with the Lord, I was always just thinking about my desires and missing the point completely that he just wanted me to delight in him. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, when you're totally focused on delighting yourself in the Lord, then you will get your desires, and that can be your gauge sometimes even. Just Am I delighting myself in the Lord, or am I compromising on my relationship with Him? You know, because if you're compromising with your relationship with the Lord, then it's probably not you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of something that is new to me, and I'm really trying to focus on the delighting and not the desire. But
Yeah, I think you just articulated what for me felt like this far away, impossible ideal. I just want to confess, like, because I get it does say, it does say in the Bible, and I think it's an excellent point. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. And I think that's a rockin' promise. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Our human capacity to pull that off with any consistency. What I love about God is at no point did He require me to sort of like I had to fling myself over this impossible hurdle before He would give me any of the desires of my heart. Like, He doesn't ask that of us. He sort of, if you think of it as in terms of like, calibrating like what you're aiming towards, the Olympics coming up, they have all the archery people, and they're like, I don't know what they do with their arrows, but they do something to try and make them land where they want. And so I think what God is asking of us is to aim at Him as what we want, that we would be delighting in Him, whatever that looks. I felt like in the beginning I didn't even know to delight myself in the word, like, yay, Jesus! What does that look like? But if we put in the effort, God will show us how to do it, but also give us a sense of, sort of a reward for that effort in tangible and intangible ways. So that's good. Okay, one more question, and then it's past our time, so we should go. Yeah.
So, what did you bring to the table?
Oh! What did I bring to the table? Oh, whew. Okay. Here's what I found in a really awful marriage. I was a dang good wife. Because I think if you can be good to a man who's treating you really badly, that shows, it shows a little bit that you're deranged. But it also shows that you've got something. And I think for any of you who have been good to men who have been bad to you, that doesn't, I joke about being deranged. But it actually shows that thing we were talking about in the beginning, that supernatural quality that you have the ability to love a man. And that ability is from God. Protect it, but no, you have evidence that you can do this and that you can do it well. And I just remember thinking, well, if I could love him, and I really did, I tried hard to love him and to treat him well and to be a good wife, I think, what would I be capable of with a really good guy? It sort of blows the mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about it. What would you be capable of with a really great guy? And then put the pressure on God to produce the really great guy. And think about the possibility that if he hasn't arrived yet, it's because he's not yet really great. A lot of you have met my husband, who I think is just fantabulous. But had we met 5 years earlier, when I was in my New Age feng shui thing, he was, I think, almost 100 pounds heavier than he is now, working in a sneaker store, stealing things from the sneaker store, and doing graffiti as a hobby. And he had a little bit of a recreational drug use thing. Not my dream man. And I'm not even saying I wouldn't have dated him then, but I'm so glad we because he has all these great stories. He talks about how God said to him at one point, and he was brand new to even considering things of faith, God said to him, do you really think a wife I send wants a husband with a pot issue? And he said, no. God straightened that out. We never had to have that conversation. So think about that. If you haven't met your husband yet, maybe he and God are having some conversations right now. And that is a good thing. And you can pray for that, and you can bless that, and you can be praying and blessing this man even before you meet him. Mm-hmm. And that is all good stuff, and that counts. And that is a really good note to end on. So thank you all for joining me. And see you in a couple of weeks and find out how it's going, figuring out